Hey guys, Penny here from Monaco Nail Academy and welcome to a two-part video. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you putting on a set of gel on extensions, so soft gel preformed extensions on Hannah here. And then we're going to do the middle feature nail from the set that I just showed you. That's the eye. And then in part two, we're going to do all of the other nails. So I'm working with artistic products, and at the moment I am sizing all of the tips. You'll see that I switch between the same nails of both hands. So when I find the right size for this ring finger, I'm then going to try the same size on the other hand. Doesn't always work out. People's hands aren't always the exact same, but this seems to me to be the most efficient way of getting my sizing done. So there, I will tell you as well, there's a little graze on Hannah's pinky. It was not me. She turned up like that. Hannah is a nail tech as well and had done her own builder in a bottle. And of course, any nail tech will know that we're a little rougher on ourselves. And so that graze was there. It's actually healed. It just looks really red in the video. So I am popping some pH prep onto the cleansed nails, and then we need primer. I prime the tips first because it needs to sit for like 15-ish seconds to basically the primer kind of melts the tip slightly so that when you add the gel, it bonds with the tip. So I prime the tips first, but only the 5 for the first hand. Then I prime the nails, and then I can go back and I feel like the primer has sat for long enough that it's going to have done its job. I don't prime all 10 because on the flip side, if you do all of them and you wait too long, then the plastic has solidified again and you've run out of time. So here's my adhesive. This is what I'm going to use to actually bond the tip to the nail. It's the middleman that can adhere to both. And I've got the artistic Z light just off to the side as well. So you're going to put your tip on and then like kind of layer it down towards you so that any excess comes out under the nail, not onto the skin. Normally the Z light turns itself on, but mine was going flat, and I hadn't planned ahead. So you will see Hannah's other hand slightly off to the side, turning it on for me. This is where I took my nearly empty bottle that I was desperately trying to get the last full set out of, and then just switched it up to a nice, lovely brand new bottle with lots of gel in it. So that's where it got a little bit easier for me. So once again, popping it down, getting it close to the cuticle, and then pulling it down towards you so any excess is out under the nail and you can get rid of it later. I use my e-file to clean it out a little bit. We're just flash curing under the Z light enough to hold the tip in place, and then we'll cure it properly shortly. So I'm not going to show you all of them, don't worry, you don't need to skip ahead, but I just thought I'd pop a couple in here so that you can see the technique, because I know I miss stuff when I'm watching things and then I kind of want to see it again. So I'm just going to show you a couple of them. It's a beautiful, very stormy day here, so I'm sitting on my stepdaughter's bed recording this in the quiet because I had a client no-show. So I'm making the most of my time, and I hope you guys are having a really good day. I kind of like the stormy nature of today. We're popping the nails now into this lamp for 60 seconds, so they had to have a full cure. I've done the other hand as well, and now I just wanted to shape them slightly. Hannah was really happy with the length. You can shorten them up to 25%. I just wanted to take them slightly more ovally and not so rounded at the end. I'm just blending around the cuticle very carefully, just a wee smidge so there's not a lip when they start to grow out, but I'm not going to do too much filing. The shape doesn't, like the actual structural shape, doesn't need changing. We just need to get the shine off the nails, a blend at the cuticle, and I just really wanted to just taper that shape a little smidge. So if you didn't realize, I just swapped to a buffer off to the side, and so this is just taking the rest of the shine off with a buffer and getting any little bits and pieces out from under the nail so that they don't get caught on polish when we start doing that. This is me checking that they are straight, because every now and then when you moved under the Z light, the client, like you and the client, are trying to move together and they can end up slightly wonky, which you can then correct. I'm using a layer of peach whip just to even out the color a little bit of this nail. I'm only doing one, and that cured before we've gone ahead and put chrome gloss on. So chrome gloss, you cure for 30 seconds before chroming, and then 60 seconds when you use it as a top coat after chroming. So it's now cured for 30 seconds, and we're using XOXO from the Be Creative pigment range to chrome and put a sheen on this nail. XOXO is actually a super fine glitter, so you don't get a proper pure chrome, but chroming, like doing the same steps, gives you that really pretty sheen instead of like a textured glitter look. I've just put some color gloss in the color Bride straight onto my table because why not? I am lazy and I can't be bothered using a palette. I am putting the background of the eyeball in here, so I did that straight line to make sure that it was placed where I wanted it, and it would be, the two sides of the eye would be even. I'm now filling in the top, and then I'll come down and fill in the bottom half. One thing that I did do here is I'm going straight on to the chromed pigment. There's a couple of times, I'm not sure if it's in this, it might have been on the other hand when I did the second nail, but there was definitely a couple of times where I was like, I kind of wish that I hadn't done that. What I could have done instead is put a layer of correction gel or another like clear gel layer to protect the pigment, and so that I could correct my work later, because by going straight onto the pigment, if I mess up, too bad. I have to find a way to fix it on top of the work that I've already done. If I had done a protective layer, then I would be able to use things like monomer or even just cleanser to completely wipe off what I had done and start again, whereas I can't in this scenario without ruining the pigment underneath. You saw me just double check that the eyes were in the same place on both hands, and now I'm using Be Creative pigment in the color Flip Flops just to do the color of the irises. I could have done it with gel polish, but in the original work that I am recreating, it was like slightly uneven in a pretty way, so I wanted to use pigment to do this instead. What I'm learning is I need to also learn to speak way slower. This is my first time narrating a video after editing it, and I feel, are you guys keeping up? Let me know, because I feel like I'm speaking so fast. I'm now working with Be Creative black acrylic paint, and I am using a mini striper from Artistic. What you're about to see now is me moving Hannah's finger, not my brush, because in a second, Pat, our friend who's in the background, is about to say to me, "Oh my gosh, your hand is so steady." And I was going to leave that audio in, but this is the way the cookie crumbled. I'm explaining to her now, based on that comment, that my hand is balancing on the lamp. So my right hand is balancing on my left hand via my pinky. My left hand is balancing on the lamp, and the lamp is on a desk. So I'm not actually being steady. I'm moving Hannah's hand and keeping myself relatively still. Obviously, there are exceptions. You will see me move my hand, but when I'm trying to do a line across a nail, you will often see the finger move a lot more than my hand. So acrylic paint is definitely a polarizing option for doing nail art. It's by far my favorite option though. And every time that I teach a class and teach it with acrylic paint, the class then immediately divides 50-50 into people that fall in love with it and people that really want to stick with gel. And there are so many good options for gel paints now. But so the thing with acrylic paint, it doesn't cure. It is water-based, so it dries. The Be Creative acrylic paints are specifically designed for nail art. So they're super, super pigmented, but because it's paint, it's really thin. So I just really like working with it. It feels nice to me, but you could do this with gel. It's just if I was doing with it gel polish, it wouldn't be so pigmented. And if I was doing it with a gel paint, I find them really thick. So this is where I land with my personal preferences, is into the acrylic paint world. Having done those nice thick lines, I'm now coming in and doing a thinner line up the top, mimicking the artwork that I'm recreating. And with this line, this is one of the ones where I really probably could have done with putting a protective gel layer between the pigment and the eyeball, because sometimes when you're working over glitter in this way, it's almost like potholes. Like when you're trying to do a nice fine line, you run into a piece of glitter and it ruins your line. Luckily, this didn't happen this time, but it was definitely front of mind as I was painting it, thinking, I really should have done that protective layer. So I'm just going to come in and put these details in, still working with acrylic paint. There's a time and a place for it. Acrylic paint doesn't do well for your block colors because if I were to put a gel top coat over the top of it, the gel is not like making nice with the acrylic paint. It's not gel on gel, which is always the preference. So with fine lines, not a big deal. The gel can just seal either side, but in the case of block colors, you would probably get chipping. I say that, of course, as I go in and block the pupil of the eyeball. I made this choice. I think it'll be fine. I think it's kind of, because it's got the purple underneath, it doesn't need to be solid. And I mean, I filmed this a week ago. They haven't chipped yet. I also say it as the rain gets heavier and heavier outside, so hopefully it's not too annoying for you guys on headphones. Putting in these little iris lines was a little bit tricky because I was putting them over pigment and thicker pigment than the chromed background, but it worked out okay. They didn't have to be so detailed. When I'm putting in these more decorative lines, one thing that I'm really trying to do is square off the ends. I think that makes a massive difference with how good nail art looks. If you take a minute to just get the ends of the line to be square and not round. Like anyone can just paint a round line, but to get a nice sharp line with the edges, I think that really elevates nail art. So that's something I'm always trying to do. What you've just seen me do is accidentally make that line that I'm doing right now thicker than I actually intended it to be. What that means is now you're watching me go back to the one on the other side and thicken it up to match. This is pretty common for me with my nail art. If I really mess something up, I will redo it. You already know in this case, I didn't have a choice because of the pigment underneath, but also time is money. And also my patience is thin. And so often I will go back and be like, yeah, I meant to do that, and edit it, basically. Putting this star in, I think of this as the forehead. Is that weird? Does that make this nail a cyclops? I was literally about to say, putting this on the forehead, whatever. Putting this little star on the nail was another moment where please learn from my mistakes and have not been lazy and done that protective layer, because in the original work that I'm replicating, it is like a thick star, like it's not just line work, and it took me forever. I took it out so that you didn't have to fall asleep through it to just get it exactly how I wanted, because I was working over glitter pigment. Even though the pigment's super fine, so's the brush and so's the paint. So it was definitely a pain in the butt. One of the downsides working with acrylic paint is that it is drying as you're working with it. So with these little fine line stars, it kind of works in your advantage because you don't have a whole heap of gel there, but I do find I have to dip back into my acrylic paint pretty regularly to make sure I've still got something to paint with that hasn't dried. Going in with these white lines that fill in the spaces in the rays, I am using gel again. Could I use acrylic paint? Absolutely. But I find that Bride, this specific shade from Color Gloss, is pigmented enough to work with it for nail art. It's nice and thick. It doesn't need extra layers. And I already had it on my desk from putting it there when I did the eyeball. So that's the main reason that I went for gel in the rays for the white part, not opening up acrylic paint. It's literally just being lazy / efficient. I used the gel as well for dotting the little stars in here with my stylus tool. You may notice it's bent. I don't know how that happened. And that's my favorite part, adding in the glint on the eye of any character or any nail art with an eyeball. Putting the glint makes it so good. I'm finishing this nail with a layer of chrome gloss again, and this layer is going to cure for a full minute. That's what the directions say. You chrome better over it after 30 seconds, but to finish it, you need that full minute. Pat required of me that I show you the other hand at this point because of how drastically it goes from holy crap, how is she going to pull this off to finished. which is one of my favorite things that clients do as well, is second guess and be like, oh no, but it always works out. Using Darty oil to finish off the nail. Chrome gloss is tack free, so I didn't have to cleanse it. There are the finished nails. They're going to be in part 2. All of these other black nails with their mottled rainbow detail will be in part 2 next week. So make sure you've subscribed. Please like this video, comment and tell me what you think, and I'll show you the rest of it next week.